We've all been there. You pull a carton of milk from the back of the fridge, check the lid, and see yesterday's date staring back at you. Cue the panic, the worried hesitation, and the inevitable sniff test. That momentary hesitation has massive consequences. This chart visualizes the scale of global food waste. Every single year, billions of dollars of perfectly edible food end up in the trash, driven entirely by the assumption that a product has expired. We treat the numbers printed on our packaging as strict, scientifically calibrated deadlines. The implication is that on Tuesday the food is safe to eat, but by Wednesday it is a biological hazard. But if you look for the federal laws governing these safety warnings in the United States, you won't find them. They do not exist. There is no uniform, government-regulated system for food dating. The U.S. Department of Agriculture requires an expiration date on exactly one product, infant formula. Everything else on the shelf is entirely voluntary. If these dates aren't federally mandated safety warnings, we need to ask what exactly is printed on our food and who decides when it expires. For most of human history, avoiding food poisoning was an entirely biological process. We relied on our senses of smell, taste, and sight to tell us if food had spoiled. If meat smelled sour, you threw out. That changed in the 20th century. The food system industrialized, products traveling long distances. Manufacturers needed a way to guarantee quality. Printing a date stamp solved this. It provided legal protection. If sued, corporations could point to the label. To decide what date actually goes on the package, companies conduct highly conservative taste tests. They estimate when a product loses peak freshness and set the date there, intentionally leaving a wide margin of error before the food actually spoils. And modern production lines introduce advanced preservatives and vacuum-sealed packaging into the equation. These sterile environments slow bacterial growth, meaning the food remains completely safe long after the conservative label implies it's bad. Expiration dates were invented to protect corporate brand reputation and limit legal exposure. They were never designed to save consumers from foodborne illnesses. Today, consumers navigate grocery store aisles filled with an unregulated, chaotic vocabulary of dates and stamps. Decoding this timeline, sell-by is strictly an inventory tool for retailers. Best if used by is the manufacturer's subjective assessment of peak flavor. Finally, used by marks peak quality, not a biological cliff where food becomes toxic. None of these common labels dictate biological safety. We are throwing away massive amounts of food based entirely on inventory suggestions and flavor preferences. To stop filling landfills with perfectly good food, we need to revert back to our own biological tools. We can navigate our kitchens safely using a simple, science-based spectrum of risk. This diagram outlines how to categorize your groceries. We start at the bottom tier with low-risk items. These are your pantry staples: canned foods, dried pasta, and rice. The rule for these items is simple. Time will eventually degrade their quality and flavor, but rarely their safety. Without moisture, bacteria cannot thrive. These items can often be consumed safely years past the printed dates on their boxes. Moving up the pyramid, we reach the moderate risk category. This includes dairy products and eggs. The American Heart Association notes that if you store your eggs in the coldest part of the refrigerator, they remain perfectly safe to eat 3 to 5 weeks after the day you purchase them. That time frame easily overrides any sell-by date stamped on the carton. At the very top of the spectrum, we have the high-risk category: fresh meats, poultry, and seafood. For these highly perishable items, the date on the plastic wrap is far less important than how you handle the temperature. Leaving a package of chicken on the counter for a few hours is dangerous, regardless of what the label says. Proper temperature control halts the clock. According to the AHA, meat kept continuously frozen at 0 degrees Fahrenheit is safe to eat indefinitely. The texture and taste will eventually decline, but the food itself remains safe. When food actually spoils, bacteria leave physical evidence. You will experience a sharply sour odor, see visible mold spots blooming on the surface, or feel a distinctively slimy texture. Those are your true safety warnings. An expiration date is a manufacturer's guideline, not a magic switch that turns your dinner poisonous at midnight. Trust your senses, understand the labels, and stop feeding the trash can.